All right, we've got some breaking news today that I'm pleased to bring your way here on Washington Watch. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey issued emergency regulations this afternoon that, in effect, will end transgender intervention procedures for minors. This is the first action of this kind in the nation. Now, we certainly hope it's not going to be the last, but this is the first, and we are honored. You know, especially when you consider the dangerous nature of these surgeries and the experimental nature of it all. This is big, big news. Joining me now to explain why this action was necessary and more is Missouri's Attorney General himself, Andrew Bailey. Mr. Attorney General, welcome back to Washington Watch. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, listen, let me begin just by commending you for your courage and your leadership on this issue. This is a huge step today, and I know you're covered up, but thank you for taking time to be on the program with us to discuss it.
Well, thank you for having me on. This is all about protecting children for me. And as a foster parent, an adoptive parent, a father of four, there's no end to the amount of energy I will put towards protecting children in the state of Missouri.
Well, we all appreciate it so much. I know probably, a month or so ago, you were actually on this program with Tony. And at that time, you had issued a temporary emergency stay against these procedures for minors. So what has led you to go from the temporary stay to now making this permanent?
Well, several months ago, a whistleblower came forward that worked at a pediatric transgender clinic in St. Louis and notified my office of what, if true, amounts to nothing short of child abuse. And so that whistleblower, we have to take her seriously. She's a progressive who self-identifies as someone who supports transgender rights. And the things she says she saw going on at the pediatric transgender clinic in St. Louis scared her and concerned her enough that she came forward and was willing to swear under oath to the veracity of her allegations. And so we called for a moratorium on administration of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and referral of minors for irreversible surgeries, to put a stop to it, to give us time to look into what was happening. And we launched a multi-agency investigation, the first of its kind in the nation. The clinic refused the moratorium and fought back, claiming that they were the only clinic in the state of Missouri providing this kind of care. Well, we know it's not care. We know it's woke left-wing ideology, science projects, experimentation on children masquerading as medicine. And subsequent investigation revealed that there's a clandestine and shadowy network of these transgender children's clinics operating across the state of Missouri. And so we had to push back. We had to put safety guards in place. And that's what this emergency rule does. It holds providers accountable and ensures that parents understand that these drugs are experimental in nature and have serious long-term health consequences for these poor children.
Wow. Well, that's powerful. And the nail that you hit on the head that I think so many people feel, but you just said it outright, was the procedures taking place really amounts to child abuse, what's going on here. So you've had an investigation underway now for X number of months on the Washington University Transgender Center there in St. Louis. Can you tell us some of the specifics of types of egregious behavior and abuse, as you call it, that you were able to uncover?
Well, so far, what we know, and additional whistleblowers are coming forward even as we speak, but what we know thus far is the allegations include that the clinic does not track adverse consequences of the administration of these drugs or the surgeries. So they provide these science experimentation on children, and they don't bother to figure out what happens on the back end, if it's helping or harming the kids. And that's at the basis of this emergency rule. It's based on science. We have 6 pages of footnotes of documentation, medical journals, and science that back up what several of these European countries said years ago, which is that this kind of treatment is not evidence-based and is dangerous. We also have allegations that parents were forced into consenting to their children's treatment. There would be instances where the kid with the mental health condition would be standing there without any kind of psych assessment and with a refusal to provide any kind of psych assessment on behalf of the clinic. And a clinician in front of the child would say to the parent, "Do you want a dead daughter or a live son?" And thus cajole the parent into consenting to these dangerous treatments. So
wait, let's repeat that. You said these individuals who were performing these procedures on minors would literally say to the parents, "Do you want a dead daughter or a live son," or vice versa?
That is exactly the allegation.
Implying that if you don't do this, if you don't allow this, your child is going to commit suicide. Is that what they were? I'm assuming that's what they were getting to.
Absolutely. And that's what's so scary. I mean, look, these kids come in confused about their body. 75% of the kids, according to the affidavits, say that they learned about their gender on TikTok. I mean, think about that for a minute. This is scary stuff. And rather than providing psychology and psychiatry and then tracking the positive outcomes from just talking to the kids, we race to the administration of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones that cause blindness, brain swelling, loss of bone density, and ultimately referring surgery and injecting suicidal ideation into a conversation where it didn't exist before that. They're not treating mental health. They're making it worse.
Wow. Yeah, this is just unbelievable information here that we've all, many of us have been studying, we've been reading, we know this kind of stuff. And you referenced it, in fact, just a few moments ago. We have so many European countries, Finland, Sweden, UK, and other places that are reversing course on these type of procedures. And yet here in the United States, it seems like we continue pushing forward with this in spite of not only other countries, but as you're bringing up, the science clearly is telling us this is a bad pathway to go. So why is our country so far behind on the science when it comes to this topic?
Well, radical left-wing individuals would rather push a progressive woke ideology and do so at the expense and to the harm and detriment of children. I mean, that's why they don't want to track the adverse health consequences from administration of these drugs and for the surgeries. And that's why the media never reports on the 6 pages of footnotes provided in our emergency rule that demonstrate that scientifically and medically, these are dangerous courses of behavior that have long-term permanent, debilitating consequences.
Well, look, there's no question when you're in a battle like this, that you, being on the tip of the spear and the first to end this type of procedures on a national basis, you are going to, and you probably already are, taking a significant number of hits from the left. In fact, I believe I read somewhere today that Planned Parenthood has already filed a lawsuit against your office. And no doubt there's going to be further litigation. How are you holding up on this? How do you feel in the midst of the battle?
Hey, I'm a warrior. I served in the United States Army, took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution, signed up for a combat arms branch of service, volunteered to go to Iraq, participated in the largest offensive operation of 2005. So I've seen my worst days on this earth, and I'll tell you, I can take it. We will continue to fight the good fight. I was willing to put my life on the line to protect and defend the Constitution and the rule of law. I took that fight to the battlefield in the war on terror, and I'm proud to be leading that fight now in the courtroom here in the state of Missouri and across the country.
Well, thank you for doing that. Are you calling on other attorneys general, by the way, in other states to consider similar actions?
Absolutely. Look, this is an innovative approach, both the way in which we marshaled state resources for a multi-agency investigation, thereby leaving no stone unturned and using several different bodies of law to attack this problem set, but also by promulgating a rule under our Consumer Protection Rulemaking Authority to ensure that there's compliance with state statute. I mean, these are tools that have not been used in this fight before. This is an innovative approach and really can serve as a model that could be exported to other states.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Thank you for your incredible leadership on this issue. If I can switch gears, I want to hit on another topic that you also have been very much involved with from the get-go. But we talked about it on the program a little bit earlier this evening. The Fifth Circuit's decision late last night regarding chemical abortions. You were part of an effort to block the FDA's unlawful ruling that allowed for abortion pills to be sent through the mail. So your thoughts on the ruling? It's got to be very satisfying to see how this thing is developing.
Well, certainly the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, the 3-judge panel reversed part of the trial court's order. We liked the trial court's order in its entirety. I mean, that's why we filed the amicus brief that brought these serious health concerns, the danger these drugs pose to women and children. We brought that to the attention of the judge by filing our own amicus brief, and we're encouraged by the ruling of the trial court. Once it went up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, it's important to note that panel, the 3-judge panel, kept in place the ban on shipment of the dangerous drugs through the mail, which clearly violates federal and state law. So proud to get a win there. We're hopeful that the remainder of the trial court order will be reinstated, and there's still a lot of litigation to go. I mean, the litigation can go for rehearing en banc, in which case it'll go in front of the entire Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, or certainly the Department of Justice is asking the United States Supreme Court to weigh in. And we're happy to take the fight there as well, because there is no end that we won't go to protect women's health and the unborn.
Yeah, well, I think it probably most certainly is going to be going to the Supreme Court, but we've got a great step in the right direction with that. You're probably aware the president's in Ireland right now, and at a White House press conference earlier today, the White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre gave the Biden administration's reaction to this ruling. I wanted to play this clip and get your reaction to what she had to say.
We're going to continue to fight. We're going to promise to do that for Americans across the country, and we believe we will prevail because we believe that the law is on our side.
All right. She believes the law is on her side. What do you think?
It defies rational thought. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the federal statute explicitly prohibits using the mail to ship abortion drugs. State law certainly does. And so that she's trying to undermine the rule of not support the rule of law. And they're going to use unelected federal bureaucrats to do it. That flies in the face of our constitutional structure. So I am confident in the ultimate success of our cause, and we'll keep fighting the good fight.
Well, there's also, and I brought this up to one of my earlier guests today, I'd like to get your reaction to it as well, but there are literally some members of Congress who have called for the FDA to ignore this ruling altogether. And that just seems like an extremely dangerous precedent to go down when you have one branch of government encouraging another branch to completely disregard the decisions of the judiciary branch. What are your thoughts when you hear these type of comments?
It undermines the rule of law. It undermines our constitutional structure. It's saddening. It's saddening that our democratic republic has reached this point in time. I mean, both sides of the aisle used to elevate the rules of the game above the players and the outcome. And it saddens me that Biden and his ilk have jettisoned that approach and are so determined to push this radical left-wing ideology that they're willing to do so at the expense of women and children's health.
Well, I think there's some, I think it's in the ballpark of 19 states now that have been involved in particularly the argument about disallowing the abortion drug to be sent through the mail. Do you anticipate now that we're going to see growing numbers of states jumping on board and understanding that not only the mail issue, the sending through the mail, but also just the danger nature of the drugs as a whole?
Absolutely. I mean, look, that was the entire purpose of the amicus brief that we individually filed in the Texas suit at the United States District Court level, was to highlight the dangerous nature of these drugs and the deleterious health consequences that women face. I mean, the left will tell you that they're about protecting women, but then they push these dangerous drugs. It makes no sense. So we're going to continue to fight the good fight to protect women and children, and especially the unborn.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point there. They claim to be so concerned about women's health, but this drug in particular, the numbers of women who end up in the ER having taken this, and there's no medical professional assisting. There's no, I mean, these women are on their own at home or wherever they may be taking a drug that was not adequately studied to begin with and has diverse consequences on them, and of course many deaths and all sorts of other health issues, and yet for political purposes they keep claiming that this is as innocent as Tylenol or something along those natures, and it's just harmful. I'm sure you have probably had all sorts of people come forth. You mentioned whistleblowers, but are you seeing a number of women come forward talking about the detrimental effects of the drugs?
Well, that's absolutely true. And again, if you read the amicus brief we filed, it really details, it enumerates all those serious health consequences. Exactly like you said, if Biden has his way, he will use the FDA to isolate women, to administer a dangerous drug in a dangerous procedure that's going to hurt the woman and kill a child. And we're not going to let that happen.
So why do they want to do this? And I know our time's wrapping up here, but what is the motive behind any administration that would be pushing an untested drug upon women and young girls, really for that matter, knowing that this thing has not been tested properly? What is the motive, in your opinion, behind all of this?
Well, it's hard to ascertain. I mean, the best I can say is that they're blinded by hate. They're blinded by lies, and they don't care about the sanctity of life, either the life of the mother, of the child, and they hate us more than they love women and children, and that's frightening.
It is frightening. Well, listen, I just want to say again, thank you for your incredible leadership on this transgender procedure that you have led the way in our entire nation today by putting a stop to that. Every one of us pause to say thank you for your incredible leadership in that regard. And our hope that many other attorneys generals will join you and many other states. And also when it comes to the abortion drug, what a great example of leadership you've been. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for your continued prayers and support.
Well, you've got it. Thank you so much for joining us.